Hey, I want to welcome everyone back, our returning viewers and all the new ones for checking in. Today we have Coach Dean Freitag from Shawnee State, formerly of Rio Grande. Yes, it's Rio Grande. Rio rhymes with Ohio, and that's important for people to know. So he's going to talk a little bit about his new role at Shawnee, the team, and what makes the experiences there unique for interested athletes. And this is sort of like a speed dating approach to college recruiting. And we're looking to help coaches looking for young race walkers so that they can get exposure for their programs and they can reach out to individual athletes and the athletes can learn a lot about them as well. Before we get started, just our daily reminder to subscribe to the channel so you're notified of the new content when it's posted, and leave comments on every video so we know what you think. Coach Freitag, it's great to see you again, and thanks for joining us.
No problem. Thanks for having me, and it's great to see you again, too.
So give our viewers and any potential recruits for your school what it makes it a unique environment for them at Shawnee.
So Shawnee is obviously a state school right on the border of Ohio and Kentucky, down on the southern side of it. And one thing that I've really enjoyed in my short time being there and getting to know the team is it's not one demographic you get on this team. You get people from every walks of life. You have city kids from Columbus, Huntington area, Kentucky, people who have never ran in their life before occasionally will come and walk onto the team. It's just, I like to say, for lack of better words, melting pot per se. And it's a great environment. You get to meet a lot of great kids, and everyone's just there for the same goal to get better and do the sport they love.
Very nice, very nice. And that location, kind of being at like a crossroads of like 3 and 4 different states makes it a lot easy to, to get to meet people from different areas of the country that you might not ordinarily have met.
Yeah, our athletic facility is, no joke, probably 400 meters from the border of Kentucky.
Nice, nice.
Walk across a bridge and be in Kentucky in less than 5 minutes.
Oh, so you can, when you're doing your runs or your walks, you can hit multiple states at the same time.
Yep.
That's really, really nice. So give us a short history of your coaching background and then transition into how you plan to integrate that into growing students into well-rounded athletes.
So far my coaching background is kind of short. I'm recently finished my college eligibility and was a grad assistant at the University of Rio Grande, also, as you said, in Ohio, where I was taught to race walk by Coach Bob Willie, a great coach who just retired. Congrats to him if he ever watches this. There, my main job was to coach the race walkers, and I also coached the female distance runners.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
And I think it was a great experience for me as a GA for Coach Willie to trust me to take over that, because I kind of had to learn as I go and kind of had trial by fire, because I started me slowly with our 2 race walkers, and then I kind of got put in charge of the girls distance team, and I had to learn not everyone's the same, and I try to take that philosophy, and not every athlete's the same, because I went from only experiencing guys distance to the girls distance team, which any coach will say it's a whole different animal.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I had to learn on the fly how to adjust for each athlete. We had some girls who were really good high mileage, some who were low. I also had a girl who's actually going to be at Shawnee State with me now, who had never race walked before, and we taught her to race walk on the fly, and she became an all-conference athlete.
Very nice. And with your recent experience being a college athlete, how is it that you are going to be able to relate to people who are very similar in age to you and share experiences and grow them as student athletes?
I've actually had that conversation with my athletes before, and what I usually tell them is I made mistakes, and I still, obviously no one's perfect. I still make mistakes so they don't have to. I try to use all the life experience I've had from high school athletics to college to now competing on a professional circuit. And I pay attention to everyone I see, whether it be a coach, an athlete. And I take pride in just listening and trying to take little notes here and there of what it is and bring the best of all worlds together to try to give the athletes the best experience they can. And I also try to look at it because I was right where they were a few years before. So some of the athletes I know don't want to speak up if something's not working or that if they're scared to ask a question. So it's a little easier to relate to them and be like, hey, I know this is hard, but you got to talk to me.
Yeah, and it's probably reassuring for them to know that you're not old enough to be their dad or their granddad,
Yeah.
and so that you've shared some of the similar experiences and you have similar interests, so you can relate to them very well. At this point in your coaching career.
Yeah. And some of
Go
them, it's like, hey guys, and obviously you get college kids who try to pull fast and like, guys, all the stuff you think you know, I was right there before you.
ahead.
And I tried to with at Rio, I was part of a older coaching staff for the most part. We had a few younger coaches, but we had a lot older. So I tried to be that middle ground for the athletes to the coaches when I was a GA, because it's like, okay, I can relate to them, but I'm also on the coaching staff. So I tried to be that little bridge to help keep the peace. And if something wasn't getting across from the coaches to the athletes or the athletes to the coaches, I try to do that.
Yeah, and sometimes it's hard to have that, understand and have that balance where you can still be the adult in the room, but then also relate to them in a way and communicate to them in a way that they understand and respect, and they don't feel like you're coming down on them just to come down on them.
Yeah.
You were there only a couple of years ago, so it's something they can recognize.
And I use the fact that I still compete helping them, because one of the things I tell them anytime when they're saying, because I also help with lifting, because I have a bachelor's degree in sports and exercise science. So
Very
I take
nice.
a lot of pride in lifting. And I think it's a great benefit for distance runners. Uh,
Absolutely.
that's a debate for another time, but
Oh, you're not wrong. No, I completely believe in that
I, I know there's
100%.
some I know there's some camps that don't agree with me.
Hmm.
But I always tell the kids, because they see me doing my workouts also, and sometimes I'll hop in and do the workouts with them. But I tell them I would never ask an athlete to do something I wouldn't do myself right along beside them.
Hmm.
If I don't feel I could do it myself, I would never ask somebody else to do it.
Very nice. So, what are the most important qualities in a potential recruit that you try to identify?
And I talked to my head coach about this, because obviously I'm assistant. I want to learn what he looks for too. Uh, and one that stood out to me is multi-sport athletes. I know we're in a day of age where kids specialize from the day they pick a sport till they go to college. Uh, and those athletes also tend to be somewhat lower mileage. And from that's usually because you get athletes who aren't burnt out and are still able to be molded.
Hmm.
And I'm a firm believer in, because I was a multi-sport athlete myself, other sports carry over, whether it's just a little part of say track or cross country to a huge part. I
Yeah.
think that's a great quality, and it brings teamwork. And that's another thing I look for is I'm a big component of team over me. I I look for kids that are going to be willing to lay it down to go win as a team over themselves, help be part of that family.
Absolutely. Yeah. Um, I mean, just for the race walk insiders, a great example of that, with a name that most people would know, would be Nick Christie, who originally was a decathlete. So he's literally done everything.
Yeah,
He still occasionally will pole vault. Um, and that's really important for track and field in general, but also race walking, which is some different set of skills and requirements that you have that other athleticism
yeah,
to come along with you when you're trying to learn these new techniques.
yeah. And one thing I always took pride in while I was competing, because my first year as a GA, I had eligibility, so I was a coach slash athlete, which I felt was a nice experience to be kind of have the both sides of it at the same time. Had another race walker who I worked with, Tristan, and as most people would know, at conference meets, usually 10K race walk are the first events to go. And at least at our conference, race walk is usually a big thing. People get excited. They don't get to see it much, so everyone's watching. And I always try to, in tracks, obviously an individual sport inside a team event. I would tell the kids that were walking with me, like, hey, let's go set a spark under our team. People are going to get excited if we go out there and win, go 1-2, do whatever. Let's have some fun and do what we, even though it's one event, let's do what we can to start that momentum to help the rest of the team. That's one thing I hope to bring over to Shawnee, having a few walkers there. Like, hey, I know it may not look like a big event, but it can start a fire under somebody and that can create a huge wave.
Yep. And all the points and all the medals are the same.
Yeah. And like, yeah. And if you get a good enough group at it, one thing I want to do is I don't want just one race walker or two race walkers. I want a whole group because people underestimate. You can pick up a lot of points real quick.
Mm-hmm. So what are the goals that you're looking to set for your individual athletes and the team as a whole on an annual basis and then over a 4-year period?
One thing I always will ask of an athlete is or no matter who it is coming in, obviously everyone's different. I just want people to give their very best and try to get better every day. Because I know not every athlete's going to come in and be able to compete for a national title by the time they're done. But if they can come in and just better themselves, I'll be just as thrilled as if they're standing on top of the podium at the end of the year. And the fact that they gave their very best, that's all you can ever ask of an athlete. Overall, the goal at Shawnee, our track program is relatively new. I'm not 100% sure the date that how many years we've been around, but right now the team is basically mostly distance runners. And we take a lot of pride in the distance team at Shawnee. It's every year at track, you see Shawnee and at national events, at least 1 or 2 kids there every year. Cross country, having a team on the starting line is a staple of the school. And the ultimate goal is to get both teams there every year and try to compete for a national championship at the end of the day.
Very nice. Very nice. Okay, so our last question, the fun one. So who would win in a race? You or the guy with the robot shoes, and why?
I'd say me because I did beat the guy in the robot shoes. And I say that because, and a lot of people don't know, the reason they had me race it is to show that they're not superhuman shoes. Because they knew the second they put that product out there, people were going to think they were basically rocket shoes.
Yeah, so give everybody a little bit of background on that little event, because that was fun. I remember that was fun for you, and it was also kind of funny.
It was. So it was kind of out of nowhere, and it was a great experience. But I got invited to go to the city of Pittsburgh to be part of a race, as Michael said, against robotic shoes, which were made by this company to help you improve your walking and kind of speed it up a little bit. Like, say you're going through an airport or through a major city where driving every day isn't as much of a luxury, say New York. And it was motorized shoes that find your stride and they propel you along to, I think they said the top speed was about 7-8 miles an hour. And they asked me to come out so they could prove that an everyday person could beat the shoes.
They didn't know they were getting a ringer, though.
Yeah, they honestly they didn't know until they were interviewing me and telling me where to go and all that. When they asked, "What kind of stuff have you done in the race walk?" And then I told them I was a 2-time national champion. They're like, "Oh, this is going to be fun." And I watched that video and I looked at the comments, which I should never have done because I can get kind of petty when people are making comments. Everyone's like, "Oh, I slowed it down to a quarter speed. He's coming off the ground." And all I can think is, yeah, one thing you don't see in the video is there's potholes everywhere. It's an alleyway in downtown Pittsburgh. I was jumping over holes while trying to race these shoes.
Yeah. The roads in Pittsburgh are a little scary.
And in the end of the day, it wasn't a legit race. There was no refs. It was all fun and games just to shine some light on the shoes because it was a company that's just started from Kickstarter and to shine a little light on myself, which I appreciated. and
Very cool.
and hopefully get now, since that, I think that last I looked, it was at 5 million views. Hopefully,
Nice.
hopefully one of you recruits that are watching this watch that and want to come to Shawnee State.
Nice way to end that up.
I try.
I want to thank you again, Coach Freitag, for joining us today. It was a pleasure chatting with you, and I hope that you have a great day.
Thank you.